How's it going, everyone? I know it's been a little while since I put a video out and I've been slacking big time. I actually had to go back and look on my channel to see what the last video I put out on this car right here was. And that was back in June when I was trying to get this thing started up and running for the first time. It is now September 6th. So I don't know what happened to the summer. It's just flown by super quick. Um, I've been meaning to make a lot of videos on this car because I've still been doing stuff to it. And if you look, oh boy, it actually looks like a functional car. It's because it is. I've been driving this thing a whole bunch. I got a bunch of videos that I need to make up, kind of going over what I've done, finishing some of the suspension stuff. I still need to do a video on the bump steer kit and a few other things. But I've actually put about 400 miles on this thing. It runs really good now. I had some running issues with it earlier when I got it put together. Turned out I had a bad computer in the car. I bought a parts car along the way, which I don't even know if I've shown you the parts car. And that had a good computer in it, so I swapped the computers. And this thing runs really good now. So like I said, I put about 400 miles on it so far, driving it here or there. There's still a few issues coming and going, but I've been working on it, Now it's kind of more little things to make it nicer. But I still have some non-functional things on the car. Things that I've been working on recently are getting all of the gauges to function because it's nice to kind of know what's going on. When I first started driving the car, first got it running, the only gauges that actually worked were the tach, oil pressure, and temperature. So I still had the fuel gauge and speedometer to get working. I got a new aftermarket sending unit, put in the tank. We got fuel gauge now, so that's super good. Still have no speedometer, and I don't know if you remember, but I upgraded the front spindles in this to the ones off of that car, which is my 85 944. Because this has, with the turbo brakes, it's got spindles off of a 86 turbo. I didn't really want to mess with the original spindles and wheel bearings and brakes on this one because I knew the ones off the other car were good. So, and with these 83s, they have the cable-driven speedometer, which goes through the driver's front spindle. And those are a little weaker from what I've been told. So I should put the other one on. It's solid. Shouldn't have to worry about it. So because of that, and it's a cable-driven speedometer, I have no speedometer. So what I got, I'll show you here. So I found this really neat thing. It's a product by a company called SpeedHut. And what it is a little motor right here. A little motor. It has its own cable, and what it does is it uses a GPS antenna, which is right there, to figure out how fast you're going, and it'll spin this cable that goes right on the back of your speedometer. So it, takes newer GPS technology and converts it to old analog style gauges, which I thought was pretty neat. It wasn't the cheapest thing, but it's kind of a neat technology. It was the only one like this that I really found. Reviews seem to be pretty good. Installation seemed to be pretty easy. So that's what this video is going to be about, is installing this speed box in that car. So the cable that this company supplied, they have their own cables. This one, I believe they said it was for a early Volkswagen, including Vanagons and early BMWs, and it fits right on the back of the speedometer perfectly. The square drive is the correct size. I called them and talked to them about some of the measurements and stuff to verify that it would fit. So yeah, we'll go about getting this thing installed. I don't know if I've actually showed you guys this thing. This thing's actually a little dirty inside right now, but it did clean up fairly decent, and I will prove that it is a running functional car. See? Got good oil pressure. You got fuel gauge temperature. The parking brake light even works. It is a good car. So I read through the instructions here for this speed box a little bit. It seems like the installation is really simple. Really all we need is 12 volt keyed power and a ground. That's really all we need. These other, so it's going to be our red and black on the harness here. The blue wire, that is cruise control output. If you know your car had cruise control, this one doesn't. And the yellow and green is for if your vehicle has a vehicle speed sensor, like on the transmission or something like that. You can plug this into that and have that drive the box to drive your speedometer. So really all we're going to do is power and ground. This thing came with inline fuse holder, and I believe there's a fuse in here. Yep, a little, I think it's a 3-5 amp fuse, so we'll put that in line. I think really all we got to do is just find a keyed power for this. And this little button here in the harness, this is for helping set the speed offset. So if it doesn't read right, you can calibrate it once you get it all hooked up. So we'll find some keyed power. I'm gonna try to stash this in the dash somewhere that you don't see it super obvious. But you know, we'll get there when we get there. So let's start tearing the dash apart and find some keyed power. So first thing I'm doing inside the car is I took the steering wheel off, which is a 24 millimeter nut, or if you don't have a socket that big, it is a 15/16. So next thing, we're going to take this switch stock off. I believe it is these 3 bolts for it to slide off. I think, I'm not exactly sure. I looked really quick online about this. I think we're going to have to pop these plastic pieces off. And then I believe there's just a screw here and a screw here to get to the back of the instrument cluster. So we'll get working on that, and I will let you know if I am wrong. So we got the switch stock off. On the plastic trim around it, there are 2 screws. You can see it right there and right there. They go up from the bottom, and it's kind of tough to get off of there. And then once you do get that off, those 3 screws that I showed you on the front right there, there, and on the bottom, that's all that holds it on. They go into those spots right there, and then that slides off. The top piece of plastic is a little tricky to get off because it tucks in behind that right there. But you can wiggle it out. And now what we'll do is there's a screw there and a screw there. So we'll pull those out, and then this whole instrument cluster should just slide right out. So the cluster here did just slide right out. See, I got some bulbs here that probably go somewhere. That maybe goes there. I do have some lights out on this thing, so I'll probably end up replacing all the bulbs while this is out. But see that red goober right there? That is the old speedometer cable, and it goes out through. So we're going to unthread that off of there. And then we should be ready to thread our new cable on and see where the box winds up. So I figured while I was in here running this new speedometer cable, I would switch the tach and speedometer and put the tach in the center and the speedometer off to the side, like the way most Porsches of the era are. All the 911s, tach was in the center, SpeedHut was off to the side. So I figured it was time to do that since I was in here. It was actually surprisingly easy to do, especially since I'm already rerunning the speedometer cable. All that really needed to be done was, let me just stick this here. So there's a ground right here on the speedometer that I just extended with a little jumper. And then there's these green and red wires that go from the tach to, I believe, the miles per gallon gauge on the speedometer, and I just extended those. It's really all you need to do. I swapped the lights side to side, and everything else just kind of fit. So I figured this was the time to do it since I'm moving the speedometer cable anyways. So you can see there's the new speedometer cable there. We'll get that rerouted and be good to go. I'm also going to fit the speed box, fits perfectly right there behind the speaker grill for the third speaker, which is not used. So that's going to work out really well. All right, so I just have this kind of jumper wired up right here. I have my speedometer cable routed to the back of the speedometer. I switched the speedometer over from the center, like we talked about earlier. Now, see we have our red light there. That means it's acquired GPS signal. So what you can do is you can push this red button, and you should see the indicator there. Let me just get this out of the way. Go to 60 miles an hour when we push this, and then we can do push and hold for it to go up if it's low, and then we can release, and then push and hold for it to go down if it's too high. So we'll just give this a push. It's starting. It's going to go past 60. It's sitting at 80, so we'll push. See, it'll go up. We'll release. It'll go down. So I'd say that's right about on 60. So it'll run for a second, then it'll stop. And now it knows exactly how much it needs to turn for 60. So it is calibrated to what we need. I've got just some wires tucked away up here. This is just kind of loosely sitting while I hot wired it. There's a nut back there that I have my ground going to. And I'm going to put an eyelet on this and ground off that nut. And then I'm just going to find some keyed power under the dash somewhere. And then we'll be good. Well, it's the next morning now, and I'm on my way to work. And see, we got things kind of switched around in the gauge cluster, and speedometer's working pretty darn good. So I'm super excited about that. I still just have to tidy up this one power wire that I sort of put in there temporarily, but yeah, this thing works really good. It found the GPSs pretty quick this morning. The time it took me to close the door, close the garage door, it found them, so I was pretty stoked about that. So I'd call this a success, and it seems like it's pretty accurate too. I might adjust it a little bit more later, but we'll see. So I think that's a wrap for this install. If anyone's got any questions or anything,